This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
enough. You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price you can get Truefire All Access for.
Right, so on Mondays I try to give a lick lesson or something that's hopefully going to help someone. So there was somebody who had a question about this specific lick that came from improvisation on the Nacho stuff. And they were kind of asking, can you give some of the thinking behind some of this lick? So I wanted to talk about some of this stuff, some of the things that I've practiced, some of the things that I've come from improvisation, what is improvisation, how to get these sorts of things into your playing, and that sort of stuff, such that I have any idea on that. Patreon will be the place to get this backing track and the tab for this lick and some bits and pieces that I might do around it, and then I relearn that lick, and then I'm going to stick it into some improvisation in a lot of places. So the first thing that you'll need to really have under your belt for any of this stuff to work, I think, is a really good knowledge of whatever the context is that you're improvising in. So if you're playing over this particular progression, I'm thinking of it as being in D major. And I think it ended like that. Okay, so if I tell you that it was improvised, there are lots of legato things that I've done lessons on that were not improvised, and then there's a lot that are. So the things that I've practiced would be more organised than this. and they might be around someone else's legato licks, for example. So like early on, I might have learned quite a lot of sort of Tom Quayle things or stuff like that, or you know, trying to play things like Emerald. And things like that without the trills. Your improvisation, any of that stuff is only going to be made up of things that you've actually learned. Like, you're not going to improvise something totally fresh that your fingers have never played before. So I think this is kind of the important thing. I think Tom Quayle and David Beebe might call these like legato pathways. That sort of idea where it's like, what routes are your fingers taking and how you get to these. So by learning these licks on a Monday that I do, or anyone else might be doing, what you're doing potentially is setting yourself up an opportunity. But I think what is not happening for me whilst I'm improvising mostly is I'm not thinking, right, I'll chuck that lick in here. However, when I'm doing a literal lick lesson like this, is the one time that I really do practice like forcing a lick into your playing. And I think this is actually quite an important skill in some ways. If you're interested in getting this sort of stuff into your playing, I think you just have to start trying. So this would be, I guess, for me, sort of phase one, right? You learn a lick. So that's kind of the first part of this lesson. So okay, so 1, 2, 3. I think is how it went. 1, 2, 3. So it speeds up at the end because I kind of, in my head, I think, clocked that it wouldn't. That I needed to be going from essentially playing over a chord 4, a G, to an F sharp or D. Something where the C sharp was actually like a better home than the D. So that's why there's like an acceleration at the end, I think, because instinctively I kind of thought I was conscious of, in my head, maybe behind the scenes a bit, maybe not even conscious, maybe unconscious, that I was going to be better off landing on this note than this note. So it's kind of like a happy thing from doing lots and lots of this. So pentatonic, B minor, and that's kind of then pentatonic, right? So that's a nice little bite-sized chunk, and I think all of these licks are made up of smaller little ideas. 9, 7, 9, 7. Nine, 6, 7, 6. 7, 9, 7. Slide down. 5 to the 4. And I think that was how I finished it off, but that was, again, not necessarily part of the lick. So the idea really here is that that's kind of the very bare minimum you can do with a lick, right? Which is taking the lick that someone else played and you play it in exactly the same key over the same backing track and starting on the same beat over the same chords and that sort of stuff. So the thing that I would try to do if I wanted this thing in my playing, beyond trying to figure out, okay, can I even do it the same as that person? So you might, over time, build up the speed. You might look at their picking hand. So I'm picking string changes. And what else is going on for me? You know, it's not a straightforward two or three note. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a slippery one, but it's not. I guess you'd think of it more pentatonic bass, or even over around that kind of context, where it's like hexatonic. Which I've done lessons on, so like the hexatonic approach, or the major scale without the fourth degree. Some people would call it an avoid note. It's that note there which I specifically am leaving out of the lick, because kind of that note can sometimes stick out like a sore thumb. I've just done it there in a slightly different way. So, right, anyway, so it's in B minor. So I think the obvious move to be doing whilst you're trying to get it up to speed is to move it into other keys. You know, if that was in G minor. If you were in G sharp minor. Okay, A minor. And, you know, you might not have to do this in all 12 keys, but to do it in a few keys means that it's more likely to be a lick that you're kind of starting to incorporate into your playing. C sharp minor. What I'm doing for that is just kind of, you need to figure your way that you're gonna see this. This one's quite easy because it's kind of sits quite nicely in the minor pentatonic shape. So, you know, hopefully, if you're in D minor. So, moving it around to other keys. The other kind of thing you could do would be try and move it around beat-wise, which is going to be a bit difficult for me to demonstrate here. But say you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So it's ending on the 1, 1, 3, 4, 1. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You just start moving this thing around. What about if it was not triplet anymore? 3, 4. So in that case, now I've got a thing that was. Now I'm thinking, actually, what about if it was straightforward feel? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so changed key, changed subdivisions, and then you've kind of now got a piece of like language, vocabulary, however you want to think about it, which is actually a little bit more you now, because it's no longer something that you've just played someone else's thing. It's now something where it's like, okay, well, I've actually interpreted this into my own operating system. You could try, you know, manipulating it and moving it. And take the shape of the lick but move it through the scale. So in that case, I've kind of taken like this, the overall shape, but moved it to a different pentatonic box. You end up, because of the way the notes fall, you're using the kind of geometry of the lick and the physicality of it to try and repeat something similar. And the other thing to do would be to start taking like the end of it and start to just kind of start it and finish it in different ways. 2, 3, 4, 1. And you could just improvise these, or you could plan them out. But tag on stuff at the start, tag on stuff at the end. Now, if you've learnt to catch a few of these fish or whatever, the next thing really that I think you've heard people talk about before is this idea that you want to try and play like a bit of a continuous line and start to join up bits and pieces that you might know. You could do this like unconsciously, or you could literally try and go between. So you saw what happened there was I was kind of going between, and this is out of time, like free from time, which is a way to practice it, but you could also do it connected to time, which would also be probably a more useful way to practice it. We're joining up and trying to keep the line continuous and flowing, with it being the goal that we want to play longer, uninterrupted legato lines. So what we're going to do, 2, 3... But start to just try and now, none of this is particularly good or anything. I'm just sort of demonstrating the idea that beyond just learning licks or whatever, you also want to get this idea of being able to run sort of uninterrupted through the D major scale and try and do things that are maybe not just straight up or down, but there will be, you know, typically you're going to be... But yeah, I think it's important to just sort of hammer home this idea that really you are going to be what you practice to some extent. So if you're looking to get more of the stuff into your playing and you're thinking, well, how do you get these things done? Learn them and then start to do these other ideas that I've shown you here, where it's like more than just regurgitating the lick. It's like, right, I'm taking this thing and making it a part of my own thing, and then I'm sort of trying to get this smaller pattern into a larger sort of working thing, and this is how I think you could just start getting these legato lines happening. So start slow and building these things up, and start trying to get used to this feeling of, without having too much preparation, being able to continue a legato line gradually. You like maybe add a little bit on the start, you add a little bit on the end, and you'll have then I think a little bit more freedom to be able to play around with these things in a way that doesn't just sound like you started a lick, you finished a lick, but it kind of seamlessly flows in and out of your improvisation. It's kind of the goal, I think, for me anyway. If you want the tabs and stuff, Patreon is the place to get them. There's also full-length tabs on there if you're interested in that. I think there's 11 of those now. Nearly 700 backing tracks, so there's loads to get your teeth into. And for this part here, only £2 a month, so hopefully that's fairly good value. I do like 4 lick lessons a month, so anyway, cheers.